She said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you, because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table.
Karoline Leavitt has made her position crystal clear. It's too late. That's the unmistakable message she's sending in response to The View's sudden shift in tone. What many see as a last-ditch effort to tone down the fallout from her $800 million lawsuit. What was once open mockery and laughter has quickly turned into awkward smiles and attempts at damage control. Just weeks ago, ABC hosts scoffed at her legal claims, dismissing them as political theater. Now, hosts like Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Hostin appear to be walking it all back, but Karoline isn't budging. The timing couldn't be worse for ABC. As she digs in, the network faces a full-blown PR crisis. Headlines are stacking up, scrutiny is intensifying, and what was once a punchline has morphed into a credible legal threat. Insiders say there's panic behind closed doors of the network, even as they try to keep a calm public face. Karoline's message echoes across social media and interviews. The damage is done. She's not interested in apologies or olive branches. The lawsuit is moving forward, and she shows no signs of letting up. One thing is clear. Brushing her off is no longer an option.
They really don't like this woman. She's a good communicator. And so Joy Behar just offered her analysis on why Leavitt was picked for the role.
This wasn't just another episode of The View. It was a spark that ignited a legal firestorm no one on set saw coming. When Karoline Leavitt announced her $800 million defamation lawsuit, the studio was filled with smug grins and dismissive laughter. To the hosts, it was a joke, a publicity stunt from a conservative trying to stay relevant. Joy Behar cracked a joke, brushing off the lawsuit like late-night fodder. Whoopi Goldberg offered her trademark shrug and smirk. Sunny Hostin, the legal voice at the table, confidently assured viewers it wouldn't go anywhere, claiming it would be dismissed within a week. The audience laughed with them. The segment rolled on. The lights dimmed. Business as usual. But Karoline wasn't bluffing. This wasn't about headlines or politics. It was about precision. While the host chuckled, her legal team quietly began dissecting years of broadcasts, digging into every memo, segment, and offhand comment. This wasn't a response to one remark. It was an investigation into a pattern, a deliberate, repeated effort to discredit and belittle, not by accident, but with intent. Karoline stayed silent, focused. No dramatic interviews, no social media rants. Just preparation. Meanwhile, behind ABC's polished exterior, things began to shift. The laughter stopped. Legal teams started asking producers for transcripts and raw footage. Editors were quietly tasked with pulling archive segments. Assistants combed through internal communications. What was once mocked was now becoming a very real problem. The same people who once waved her off were now reckoning with the possibility that her lawsuit was more than valid. It was built on a foundation of solid evidence. And suddenly, Karoline Leavitt wasn't the punchline. She was the one holding all the cards.
I have to stop you with the camera, because I can see you. So do me a favor, don't pull it out again. I'd appreciate that.
Then came the bombshell that changed everything. A trove of leaked emails and internal Slack messages from behind the scenes at The View. One message instructed, asterisk, Joy should press her hard on the youth angle. Get her flustered early. Asterisk another read. Asterisk, keep the audience engaged. Cut to reactions when she stutters. Asterisk, but the most damning was a handwritten note found in a producer's planning notebook. Asterisk, let her dig her own grave. Just ask about Trump. She'll spiral. These weren't spontaneous remarks or off-the-cuff jokes made on live television. They were deliberate tactics, mapped out before a single camera rolled. This wasn't just defamation. It was premeditated humiliation. Suddenly, the laughter that once filled living rooms across America no longer felt funny. Clips that once entertained were now being replayed in courtrooms, picked apart in law offices, and poured over in ABC's crisis meetings. Karoline didn't respond with outrage. She didn't blast them on social media or issue fiery press statements. Instead, she stayed composed, collected, and quiet. She handed the messages, notes, and footage to her legal team and let the facts speak for themselves as the world watched in disbelief. One thing became clear. Karoline wasn't fighting back with noise. She was fighting back with proof.
Democrats and the media are now unloading all their nasty attacks on rising Trump White House star and new press secretary, Karoline Leavitt.
Because when the truth is on your side, there's no need to shout. You stay still and let the facts do the talking. As days passed, the atmosphere inside ABC shifted from confident indifference to quiet chaos. What started as smug dismissal rapidly evolved into full-blown panic at first. Executives were unfazed. On Monday, during a casual Zoom call, one confidently said, asterisk, we've had worse. This will blow over. Asterisk, but by Thursday, the mood had changed. The calm was gone. Crisis meetings replaced check-ins. Top legal counsel was flown in overnight. PR firms were instructed to monitor public sentiment around the clock. Vacation plans were canceled. Departments scrambled to collect and review documents. ABC wasn't just preparing for a legal fight anymore. They were bracing for a reckoning, and the most unsettling part? Karoline's legal team hadn't even entered the discovery phase, yet the mere prospect of discovery sent a fresh wave of anxiety through the boardrooms. Full transparency was looming. Emails between producers and hosts, on-air footage, prep notes, internal communications, even HR reports, all would need to be turned over. Buried within that trove of content were red flags that had long been ignored. One internal memo from 6 months earlier voiced concern. Asterisk, recent interviews with younger conservative guests feel overly aggressive, borderline targeted. Asterisk, another, flagged by HR, noted. Asterisk, there's a growing pattern of strategic tension creation. Unclear if this stems from editorial direction or personal bias. These weren't just casual complaints. They were formal warnings, documented, time-stamped, and now potentially pivotal to a case ABC never believed would see the light of day. But the light was coming, and there would be nowhere left to hide.
These women are completely out of touch with reality, and you're right, ABC should wake up.
These weren't just stray notes. They were clear warnings, and ABC chose to ignore them as panic trickled down the ranks. Interns who once fetched coffee were suddenly being questioned about planning meetings. Junior producers quietly sought legal counsel. Staff began deleting texts and scrubbing group chats. Meanwhile, Karoline's team remained unnervingly silent. No statements, no interviews, just a cold, calculated stillness that rattled even the most seasoned executives. One reportedly confided to a colleague, asterisk, it's like she's already won, and we're just waiting for the paperwork to make it official. Asterisk.
For me, and sort of lived lives of dreams deferred and poured everything in me, and just my life, how I transitioned from college. I went to college when I was 16, high school when I was 12, the struggle of that, and my career as a federal prosecutor, and then how I found my way.
The team kept asking for updates, but executives kept dodging the questions, not out of strategy, but because there was no good news to give. Every day brought new risks to light. Every hour, another damaging leak surfaced. Legal quietly floated the idea of a private settlement, but PR shut it down, worried a payout would look like an admission of guilt. And even worse, what if Karoline didn't accept? This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It had escalated into a full-blown war, and the network was losing ground fast by the time the hosts were fully briefed. The damage was already done. They had laughed her off in front of millions, dismissed her behind closed doors, and now watched the foundation beneath to begin to crack. Whoopi Goldberg didn't walk into the emergency meeting. She stormed in, straight from set, hair half done, makeup towel still in hand. Furious, she didn't wait to sit. We're seriously considering a deal with her. Asterisk, she demanded executives scramble to explain. The damning emails, the on-air footage, the growing legal threat. One misstep, one admission of fault, and it could spiral into a scandal that engulfed more than just the show. Whoopi wasn't buying it. We're making her look like a hero, she snapped. Asterisk, you think Twitter's bad now? Wait until they find out we paid her off. Joy Behar jumped in, her voice edged with frustration. Asterisk, we built this show. We carried this network through elections, through controversy, through shutdowns. And this is how it ends? With us folding over one lawsuit. Tension thickened. No one had answers. All eyes turned to Sunny Hostin, the show's legal voice, for clarity. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't posture. She simply placed the printed lawsuit back on the table and spoke softly, like she almost didn't want to be heard. She has enough to go to court. If this goes public, it won't just be about us. It'll be about the network. Whoopi stared, narrow in her eyes. Asterisk, you're saying we should apologize, but Sunny didn't answer. She didn't have to. Everyone in the room knew that might be the only way out, and the scariest part, it still might not be enough.
She was conflating two ideas. This word wokeness didn't look like she really understood what it meant, or certainly the way Karoline Leavitt meant it when she made that statement, and she was conflating it with civil rights and how, women didn't have the right to vote or own property and all of that. That has nothing to do with wokeness, which is, of course, about putting people in there because of their immutable characteristics rather than the merit that they bring to the table.
When the cameras switched on that morning, something felt undeniably off. The set of The View looked the same, polished, vibrant, familiar, but the energy was different. Gone was the usual rhythm of sharp banter and confident back and forth. In its place was a tense stillness. Awkward pauses hung in the air where laughter used to live. Even the audience, typically warm and animated, sat in subdued silence. Whoopi Goldberg sat with her hands tightly folded, her trademark smirk nowhere to be seen. She looked directly into the camera, took a long breath, and spoke in a voice far more fragile than viewers were used to. Things have gotten a little out of hand. Maybe we need to take a step back. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Controlled, careful, almost unsettled. Then, in a moment no one expected, Joy Behar followed. Known for her quick wit and sharper tongue, she didn't hide behind humor this time. Her voice trembled. I don't know why this has to go so far. Can't we just talk? It was vulnerability, raw and rare. Finally, Sunny Hostin leaned forward. Her voice was steady but serious, as if she were speaking to just one person. Karoline, if you're watching, maybe there's a better way to handle this. This wasn't debate or a panel or even crisis management. It was a plea. Three women, visibly shaken, stripped away their usual layers of satire and spin offer something else entirely. Something quiet, cautious, and almost rehearsed. A last-ditch effort to stop the unraveling.
Yes, and as you mentioned, with conservative women, there's a long list of that, both of Trump's previous press secretaries, females, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany, other figures like his campaign manager the first time, Kellyanne Conway, Sarah Palin very famously had to bear the brunt of a lot of this. So people are used to that. I think in their bubble of the audience that The View speaks to, that's probably kind of what the groupthink is. So one defense, I guess, is that she was speaking to her audience, but you take it outside of that bubble the way you are right now, and we all can see.
Gone were the dismissive jokes and smug laughter. In their place lingered a quiet, almost palpable desperation. But Karoline Leavitt didn't flinch. She didn't tweet. She didn't hold a press conference. She didn't even post a cryptic message. Her legal team released just one sentence: "We are moving forward as planned." With that, the tone was set. This was an invitation to talk. It wasn't a signal for negotiation. It was a message, clear and unwavering. Asterisk, this isn't about conversation. It's about accountability. While The View scrambled to salvage its image, Karoline remained completely silent. No commentary. No reaction. She had already done the work, waited, watched, and gathered. Now, her silence was louder than any statement. It left the host's sudden shift in tone to tell the story for her. Their attempt to appear composed and contrite didn't read as grace. It read as fear, and the American public was watching every second. The internet responded instantly. Clips from the show's latest episode spread like wildfire, side by side with footage from just days earlier when the host mocked Karoline openly. Social media lit up. One viral tweet read, asterisk, "If you weren't guilty, you wouldn't be begging." Asterisk, another bluntly put it, asterisk, "That's not humility. That's fear." Trending hashtags took over timelines. Karoline was right. View meltdown, media accountability. Receipts don't lie. TikTok users broke down every frame of the broadcast, pointing out body language shifts and inconsistencies. YouTube creators posted detailed commentary, some over an hour long, dissecting the fallout. Even meme accounts joined in, with biting humor that struck a nerve. One viral meme showed Whoopi's solemn face next to a sinking ship with the caption, asterisk, "Captain goes down with The View." Asterisk, another showed Joy Behar clutching a binder with the words, asterisk, "When a roast session becomes a deposition." It was hilarious, but it hit hard. Conservative media pounced. Networks like Fox News dedicated entire segments to the unraveling. Opinion hosts called it a defining moment in media accountability. But this wasn't just a partisan spectacle anymore. Even moderate and left-leaning voices began to speak out. For many, it had stopped being about politics. It was about truth, and through it all, Karoline said nothing. No victory lap, no self-congratulations, no smug retort. She let the internet do what it does best. Echo the truth louder than any press release ever could. With every moment The View tried to regain control, Karoline gained something more powerful. Public trust, quiet admiration, and unstoppable momentum. Her silence was a masterclass in restraint, and it spoke volumes.
Do you want to take this?
No, you cannot be attractive and smart. I will try to give Joy the benefit, and well, thank you. I try to give Joy the benefit of the doubt that she didn't see that briefing. Because if you saw that yesterday on numerous topics, no big binder, I think she might have had a different impression of this young woman who held her own.
I mean, you would have to give her the benefit of the doubt that she did absolutely no research or reading about anything dealing with Karoline Leavitt before she made that remark. Because Karoline Leavitt worked, I mean, she went to St. Anselm College. She worked for WMUR in New Hampshire. She ran for Congress at the age of 25, put on a very good campaign. She lost by 8 or 9 points, but she still put on a good campaign. Then she was the press secretary for the Trump campaign, going on TV literally every day.
Everyone was waiting for Karoline to make a move, a press tour, a bold statement, maybe a high-profile interview. But none of it came. She didn't flinch, didn't respond to the noise, didn't take the bait. Her team stayed locked in, methodical, focused, and unwavering. While the media speculated in the internet buzz, they worked quietly behind the scenes, reviewing footage, organizing documents, and interviewing witnesses. This wasn't about headlines. It was about principle. Karoline wasn't seeking attention. She was building a case. And that case was tightening by the day. Legal filings were being polished with precision. Witness lists grew steadily. Every scrap of internal communication, from careless producer memos to offhand on-air remarks, was being time-stamped, cataloged, and added to an ever-growing archive. A narrative wasn't being shaped on talk shows or in online arguments. It was being constructed in silence, detail by detail, until the weight of the evidence could no longer be ignored, and soon it wouldn't be.
They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him, they have shamed him, they have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right, ABC should wake up. They just paid $15 million to President Trump's future library. That's a great thing for the American people.
Karoline wasn't driven by spite. She was driven by exhaustion. Exhaustion from the double standard, from being publicly mocked and privately dismissed, from hollow apologies given too late, and outrage that only flared when it was convenient. She had seen it happen to others, but this time was different. This time, she had the platform, the resources, and the resolve to push back. And she wasn't about to let it slip through her fingers. What she was doing wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation, reclaiming dignity, reclaiming truth. People called her brave. Some said she was calculated. But most agreed she was right. She didn't need to raise her voice or point fingers. Her steady, unyielding progress spoke louder than any public outcry could. Meanwhile, the View was shrinking fast. Inside ABC, chaos had become routine. Executives were meeting twice a day in damage control mode. Advertisers were backing away. Staff quietly polished their resumes. Leaked memos revealed internal panic with subject lines like reputational risk escalation and asterisk contingency strategy. Asterisk, some executives whispered about rebranding, while others questioned if the show even had a future, because this wasn't just a lawsuit, it was a collapse. Not just legal, but emotional, cultural, and deeply reputational. Well, listen, if you don't have anything to say, MHM, you just blab. You go on and on and on, and on The View, asterisk had built its reputation as a bold, unfiltered voice of daytime truth-telling. But now the illusion was cracking. Viewers were seeing what had long been hidden behind the curtain. Rehearsed lines disguised as spontaneity, manufactured drama passed off as authenticity, and sharp-edged bullying cloaked in humor and banter.
Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason. Because black people couldn't get into colleges. Because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our to make sure that this was a person's world.
Karoline wasn't backing down, begging for forgiveness, or chasing the spotlight. She stood firm with quiet conviction, calm and unwavering. This had moved beyond money. It was about truth, setting the record straight, and holding a powerful institution accountable. And as she did, millions of Americans watched, not just in support, but in recognition of something rare. Courage without spectacle.
Irony in all of this is that Joe Biden and the Democrats and these ladies on The View constantly say President Trump is the alleged threat to democracy, when in fact they themselves are wishfully thinking that President Trump will be imprisoned when he has not been convicted of any crimes. That is the real threat to democracy. Voters see that, and that's why President Trump continues his dominance in the polls, not just with Republicans and independents, but he's also picking up historic gains with Democrat constituencies such as African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and union workers.
What happens next could redefine the boundaries for talk shows, media figures, and the unchecked power of networks. Karoline didn't flinch. She fought back. And the storm she's unleashed is only gaining strength. Her stand is forcing a long overdue conversation about accountability in media. And now, the spotlight turns to us. Did The View cross a line? Is Karoline right to stand firm? Should networks be held legally responsible for what they air? We want to hear your thoughts. If you believe in truth over spin, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Karoline Leavitt isn't just making headlines, she's making history.